they do explicitly say in, yeah, like they're both under rapid development. I don't know if it says explicit that it's not production ready, but you especially says so. I think if you were to start a new project today, and you wanted it to be like a serious endeavor for work or whatever, I probably wouldn't use WebAssembly quite yet. I would probably go the more established JavaScript, React, whatever route. But if you're just having fun and learning with a side project and you want to do a lot of Rust, then WebAssembly is a perfect thing to jump into. So I played around with these just before stream, just kind of figuring out which one's easiest to get into. And it seems to me that Seed is actually the easiest one. I think their docs are a bit better. I looked at like, how do you make an HTTP request, for example. And so you has this thing called services. If you look at their API docs, services, they have like a fetch service, but they don't really show you how to use it, just sort of how to create one. And if you go to their docs, services, it's just like, nothing's really here, please make a PR. It seems that Seed has a slightly more extensive documentation. I'm not a huge fan, like they use macros for each HTML element like this. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of that. I might change my mind. You, I believe, uses a procedural macro that sort of looks like this, which sort of looks like JSX, which is kind of nice. I personally prefer this over this sort of macro style. So I think you would have to do a bigger analysis and evaluate both framework, actually try to build something with both of them to figure out which one would you actually want to use. But just sort of my gut reaction is that I feel like I like Seed more. So they have a quick start thing, which is like a project that you can pull down and that basically has everything set up. It has like a counter thing where you can press a button and the counter goes up. So that's what we're going to use. I pulled this down earlier and it does actually work, which is nice. So this is like a GitHub template thing, which I don't really know what is. Let's just clone it down. Let's make a new tab, call it front end. Let's clone it down. You can see I already did that previously. All right, so you have to install a couple of things to get started. They use something called cargo make, which is sort of like make from the C and C++ world. So there's this make.toml file that defines different tasks that run commands. That's the extent of my knowledge about it. But basically when it says like tasks.serve, then that means that you can say, on a terminal, you can say cargo make serve. I believe you can also say list all steps. So if you say .h, you can see there is list all steps, cargo make. So there you can see these are all the things that it can do, and there's build and there is serve. So serve will actually start up a web server, cargo make serve, whoops, that you can go to. It's at localhost 8000. So this is basically the screen that I saw at first, which confused me very much because I'm like, there is stuff here, like there should be a counter and a button that we can click on, but it's not really working. What's going on? I tried in Chrome, same thing. If you look at the console, you can see it just says text HTML is not a valid JavaScript MIME type. which is true. I mean, it is not a valid JavaScript MIME type, but why are we getting that error? That's really weird. If you look in the logs, you can see it is making a response with indeed that thing. You get the same error in Chrome, so that it's not because Safari is weird. I did a bit of Googling and eventually found an issue where they said that you've probably forgot to run cargo make build. And actually, if we look in the README, they recommend that you run, where is it? Yeah, so that you make one tab where you run cargo serve and then another tab where you run cargo watch. And cargo watch will recompile every time you make a change to your files. And the first time you boot it up, it'll actually build it. So that's what we're doing now by running our cargo make build. So it turns out that what I hadn't done, which is I haven't actually built the WebAssembly bundle, which is probably something that we're going to want to do. It's a really confusing error when you don't know what's going on. So that's sort of annoying. But if you do run into it, that's probably why. So there it is. There's the counter. The error is gone. We can increment it. If we try to change the text here to be like, here is the counter, compile again, you can see the text did indeed update and it still works. So we've successfully made a WASM app. I think we're gonna want to run this in a separate tab. Front end server. Like that. We're still able to compile with like Rust Analyzer and stuff like that. I suppose that's because they have like special stuff in the cargo.toml file. I'm actually not exactly sure what's here. Wait, why are they referencing a commit? Reference commit fixes base URL and memory bugs in Seed 0.7. What's new version of Seed released? Is there a new version of Seed released? No. All right. I guess there's bugs. What version is that? How do you go to a specific commit on GitHub? I'm just wondering, like, what version of Seed are we on? If you just click here. So this is the latest one from 5 days ago. All right. I suppose we could just say master as well. Let's just keep it to this branch. All right. Say this is backend docs. We should be able to make one called front-end docs. Cargo doc server. Port 4001. So I basically want a page that I can go to that has all the docs for our library, for the front-end library rather. All right, so while that's compiling, let's just talk a bit about how the sort of structure is. Let's nuke all these comments. All right, so those of you who are familiar with Elm should feel very much at home. So there's a start function. I'm not quite sure what this wasm bindgen thing means. I think that's just sort of the Rust library that'll basically hook it up to the JavaScript runtime, I think. So you make an app, you give it a name, I guess. You give it 3 functions: init, update, and view. Init is basically what tells you the sort of seed runtime how to make the model for your application. The model basically represents any state that your application has. So like what page is the user on, who are they logged in as, any sort of other state that your app might have. Then there are messages. That's sort of how you communicate like with the seed runtime what you want to happen. And then there is update, which is where you take a particular message. So like something happened, that could be like a user clicked on a button. It takes a mutable reference to a model. In this case, it takes orders as well, which I think is like how to make HTTP requests and other sorts of things. And then the idea is that you pattern match on the kind of message that you receive, and then you update your model. And then the seed runtime will call this view function, which takes an immutable reference to the model, and then you're supposed to return a node, which is basically an HTML thing. And that's sort of how the life cycle works. So the idea is that at first, the framework will call the init function to get the initial version of the model. It'll call a view with that version of the model, get back some HTML. It'll put that in the page. And then whenever something happens, if like you click a button, you can see that we make a button for the model. I'm not quite sure what that means. And then this EV thing is probably just like an event. Create an event handler that accepts a closure and passes web-to event, allowing full control of event handling. So this basically creates a click event. So like when the user clicks on this button, we want to return this message. So then it'll call the update to be like what to do with this message and pass you a mutable version of the model. And then you can make any changes you want. And then it basically calls view again and waits for the next event. So if you're familiar with like functional programming, the way you do it in Elm, this is how you can have sort of a sort of pure, without any sort of mutation way of doing of managing a front-end app. In this case, we are actually mutating because in Rust it's totally fine to have a mutable reference to the model because we're guaranteed, because of ownership, that there's only one of these references alive at any given point. But in Elm, you would just like return the model here instead. So you take in the previous model and then update it and return a new one. But in Rust, that's not strictly necessary. This is basically everything there is to the framework as far as I'm aware. And what's really nice about this is that we're sort of able to reason about all the different things that can happen in our app and sort of view them as just taking a message and a model and producing a new model, or taking a model and producing HTML. That's sort of everything that there is, which turns out to be a very nice way to actually build your application. So I'm not quite sure where we should begin. We should probably just try to familiarize ourselves a little bit with the framework. Let's run that cargo make watch thing from before. Can we just put it at the bottom? And if we make some error, do we actually see it? Yeah, it does show up. All right. And it shows up here as well. Yeah, cool. So that just means that we should be able to, whenever we make a change, to like when it's done building, we should be able to go to the browser and see it immediately. Nice. Are the docs done? Yes. There they are. We should have seed. All right. So they have a whole bunch of macros. Cool. So let's just kind of see if we can get anything done whatsoever. What does C do? Add classes to the element. The reason we can't call it class is because class is a keyword in Rust. No. All right, I guess that's just the choice of the library. Can we put these in any order? Yep. Did that work? There's a div with a counter. Yeah, that's the one. All right. Nice. So what if we wanted to make it like so you could decrement it as well? Here is the counter. I suppose button. It probably takes anything that implements display. How does that work? What if we put something there that doesn't implement display? Trait bounds not satisfied. Doesn't satisfy. Right, that's not terribly helpful. So currently it just has a button that shows the count. So we're just like, we're total WASM noobs, right? We're just figuring out what's going on. Let's make an up and down counter buttons like plus and minus, and then let's have and let's show the actual counter value below. And the front end people are probably asleep by now. So we want a new, let's say, how do we do that? So we have I'm not used to writing HTML this way. We have a div which says probably just have two buttons. Which one that does plus, one that does minus, increment, decrement. Like that. Counter value. That's kind of nice. All right. Cool. That was pretty easy. I do kind of like this, that you're able to put things in any order. We don't need to deal with like attributes and stuff like that on the HTML. That's kind of neat. All right, I wonder what this orders thing is. Proxy render force web page to render immediately after model update. Yeah, success. So far so good. Ship it, right? Notify all subscription handlers that listen for messages with the message. Skip. I suppose this is how you basically tell the runtime to sort of do stuff, like set a countdown or run an HTTP request or something like that. Perform command. MSU. Commands timeout. Message timeout. What if we were to do this? So when you update, we also say wait 1 second. And so CMDs we already have because we imported the glob thing up there. So now we should get a timeout message. How do we do a console log? Console seed console seed log seed log. Hey, happy coding. Yeah, we're just getting started on the WebAssembly, which is exciting. I've never done that before. So now the idea is that every time we increment, we set a countdown to 1 second. That basically tells the runtime to, after 1 second, give us another, like, call update again with the timeout. And then we should log stuff. Let's see if that works. Let's bring up the console. There it is. Very nice. Why are there quotes around it? Put a lot of those. Very nice. All right. So how do you do, like, what commands do you have? CMD. CMDs. All right, only timeout. Great. Amp data orders. Effects. Notification. How do you make HTTP requests? There was a section about that in their README. All right, so they have an actual model struct. We're gonna want that eventually, so let's just do that for now. I think it should still work. Yep. So that's the sort of nice stuff. Well, one of the nice things about having this sort of setup is that when everything compiles, it's highly likely that your app is going to not crash. Data fetched, seed fetch response data result. Deprecated in seeds. Use. Great, they should update their docs. So I guess if you guys want to contribute to seed or to open source in general, a good place to start would be to update these docs. We use seed request Wrapping the fetch API. That's a new thing in browsers, right? It's like a built-in way to make requests, so you don't need the XML HTTP request thing anymore. Differ from jQuery Ajax. All right. Let's just try to copy this after mount. So that's a way to, like, when the app boots, you can immediately begin running stuff. Build and start. Where do they pass in the model? After mount generates the model. After mount, they probably derive default for their model. Yeah. So after mount is probably just some type that like wraps their model, and then if the model implements default, then after mount implements default as well. Let's just try to copy this structure. Whoops. Like that. So we don't actually want to use that one. Let's use this deprecated thing first and see if we can figure out how to replace it with the thing that's not deprecated. And let's remove this timeout stuff, it's silly. Whoops. Branch. What is the branch? Yeah, they were like loading stuff from the GitHub API. Serialized, deserialized, those come from Saturday. Those we know. I wonder if, like, from the backend side, we have this responses module. We could probably make like a shared crate or something that both the backend and the front end depended on. That would be kind of nice. Use Saturday deserialize. Serialize. Cannot find type. There we go. So let's try to log it when if anything ever comes back. What is this thing? Can you see it? Fail reason. All right, if it compiles, it works. Did we ever fire it? No, we didn't. Fetch data. Fetch data. And they probably don't do anything on fetch data, right? No. Okay. Like they send the message here, which then probably immediately just calls update, and then they send the order. I wonder if they could just like do this to begin with, like down in the after mount. Probably. There's a fetch data function. This one, oh, that's nice that it just returns a future. I wonder if we can make it an async function. Does async await work with work in WASM? I'm not sure. Fetch JSON is not found. Future. Fetch JSON data. Deserialize owned static. Seed browser fetch request. Seed browser service fetch request. Is that the same? Seed browser fetch request body. Set the body. What's it saying? Expected JS value. JSON mode cache. I'm not even sure what this even is supposed to do. Well, let's try to read it. So it returns a request. Fetch JSON data. And that's the message that it sends when it's done. I wonder if they have examples in their Git repo, because those will probably compile. Fetch. Simple. Fetch user JSON. Okay, let's try to copy this. It's likely that this example will actually work because they probably compile all the examples together with the actual code. It seems their docs are a bit out of date. So we don't want this commit stuff anymore. They aren't using the after mount either. Message fetch. Okay, so things are back to working. I don't think we want this one. They have a received with a user. What's a user? A user is just a deserializable thing. Does the message not need to implement clone? Sure. This can just be Saturday. Data fetched, that is received. Whoops. And how you actually fire it. Do it like this. Fetch. So anything that be converted into a request, it returns an async response. Apparently a string probably just becomes a GET request. Let's run the backend server and see if we can actually request the slash. Wait, we removed the slash users route, right? Main users create. Let's just try to call me and see if that works. 8080. Turn it into a Saturday JSON value. Don't really need this user thing. All right. So when we receive the fetch message, then we perform the command, and that will respond with message received at the very end, and we send the fetch message in the beginning. Let's just add a bit more logging. Received message fetch. Command is done. Command started. All right. Whoa, that did not work at all. Panicked. Network error, geez, origin. Ah, that's some course thing. God damn it. I thought we were able to get around that. All right, probably not. Do we see anything on the back end? We do. Yeah, it is actually calling us. We just need to set up course. Course middleware. Get post options for anything, allow credentials. Where's that? Set allow credentials and return new course. Anyone in chat knows what allow credential means in course? Get post put patch delete. Head is a thing as well, I believe. Still nothing. HTTP request failed. 8,000. It's not allowed by access control origin. Now credentials false. Max age. I wonder why this doesn't work. Origin. Any. I think that's what star is in the first place. Yeah, it still doesn't work. Source lib 42, is that in our code? Yeah, that is pretty nice. I don't think that matters. Nah. Do they have anything here about cores? Nope. You normally don't need to do anything on this on the client side, right? WebSys, request mode, cores. Do they do anything here regarding cores? No. Fetch. Cores sets a header in the HTTP response, right? What if we just make a dummy route that doesn't do anything fancy? At /get async we return are you using the right port? I think so. Did you use localhost? Yes, I believe I did use localhost. Status code, okay. All right, so this endpoint definitely works. There we go, let's try calling that instead. Localhost 8080. The server is running on localhost 8080. Change it to slash Did it work? Yeah. What? Why didn't it work before? Change this to slash me. I think I know why. If we remove this middleware, does it now work? No. What? If we remove the cores middleware, the slash root thing should not work either. So my thinking was that this middleware basically got that the authentication endpoint failed. So this got that response and then made a new response that didn't have the cores header on it. So basically by calling this endpoint, which doesn't fail, so that would hit this part of the middleware, which does have the cores added by the previous middleware. What endpoint are we calling? Slash me. So now slash me fails, which we would expect because we don't have the cores thing. Rebuild. Curious if you launch on cargo run from Vim or Tmux. Tmux. Yeah, there's a fine line between Tmux splits and Vim splits. I have a plugin that allows me to use the same key bindings to navigate anywhere. But these separate tabs over here are Tmux and these are Vim. All right, so now we have the cores, we just recompiled, and we're calling the endpoint that should always work, and that does work. So now if we call slash me, it fails. It's probably because their cores middleware doesn't work on errors, but only on successful responses. If we look at their cores middleware, we can probably see how it works. Implement middleware. Origin. Mute response next run. Yeah, they call question mark. So that probably means that they ignore anything that actually works, or rather anything that fails. What if we just copied this thing and did our own implementation that doesn't have the question mark here? Let's kill this guy for now. Is there a way that we can validate this theory? Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's what's happening. Because the only difference between this endpoint and this one down here is the fact that this one fails. What if we hard code this one to always return one user and not actually authenticate? Endpoint me. User ID. I mean, this should definitely work, right? Because at this point, we're just making it the same as this one. To response. We're calling /me. And that works. Yeah, I'm quite confident that that's the reason why it's broken. All right, let's see if we can fix it. Wonder if there's an easier way than copying the entire source. Like, could we make our own middleware that wraps this guy? Probably could. We should probably note down here that we most likely have a similar bug here in that we don't pass on the headers. Let's write that down to do. Might have to pass on headers. Wait, no. The error can't have any headers. So that doesn't make any sense. That's not possible. It's only the responses that can actually have headers. All right, let's just try to copy in the source of this guy and see what happens. Where does header value come from? Origin. For a moment there, I thought it would just compile. Box futures. I believe that is in the futures library. Headers. Why not a subtrait? What do you mean? How would that fix it? Is valid origin. Build pre-flight response. Oh, that was a huge method. Result. That is just a tied result, I believe. Response origin. Wildcard. All right, that works. So how can we get rid of this question mark? I think that's the problem. Into. If we match on it, so this should all still work. What type does this have? That's one of these errors that we looked at before. This one. What could we do with that one? Status and display debug implementations. It's pretty much all we can do. Oops, sorry. Wonder if we can do something similar to this. Set body. Body string. But that also sets the that's not quite what we want. Because like, what if the body is JSON? Then it has the, then we should set that, the JSON content type. Can't find value status, that is error.status. And wait, let's just return it like that. That seems to work. So instead of using their middleware, let's use our own. No new function. Let's just copy in the whole thing. This is not what I expected the stream would be about. Copy pasting code, having no idea what it does. If the compiler works, YOLO. All right. I mean, fair warning, it did say in the README of Tide that it's not production ready. And our front-end framework is not production ready either, so we're living on the edge. Fuck. Bad request. Hey! That means it works. Because we're calling me, and me fails because we're not authenticated, and we do actually see the, like we do actually get through, right? There's no CORS thing that's holding us back. So it is actually working. We see this is the response that we set. Yeah, access control without origin star. Sweet. So I think it actually works. That should totally be an issue on the Tide GitHub project. Yeah, that was easy. Whoa, all right. Well, so can we bring this back? And if so, does that break everything? It probably breaks here. Let's do like a print of what the error actually is. Do we have the log crate? Log. Like that. Wait, did we bring that back, the other one? Yeah, we did. Because I imagine that this is gonna like remove the nice JavaScript formatting of our response, which we do want. I'm also curious in what order the middlewares are called. Yeah, it's text plain. Wait, what was in the logs? That probably means that this middleware is called first. Put this one down here. That didn't hit the logging that we set up. Didn't log this guy. Ah, that's because this one catches it and turns it into a successful response. But it did have the course thing on it, and it does have the right content type. So is there a bug? Will this one, currently this one will never be called, right? Because this one catches all errors and turns it into successes. So this strictly isn't necessary. If we didn't have this one, then it would still be necessary. So the reason that we saw the issue before is because we had it the other way around, which meant this one would run first. So I think this should actually be fine now. Yeah. All right, let's remove this one. Let's just run the backend test to make sure that we didn't break anything. And then we're going to figure out how to actually make a form on the front end to log in. Calls middleware we don't want. Origin we don't want either. Yes, we do. Cool. Run the backend. How do you know what text is in the text field? Like if we were to make an input thing and people type in it, are we able to get, can we get like access to DOM nodes and call like that text or however you're supposed to do that? Document. Log window, HTML document. Document. Children. Wow, this is so weird. This is like JavaScript and Rust. Element. Local name. Text content. Is that the way that you're supposed to be making forms? Is there a form example? There's a to-do MVC. Lib. Model data refs. Next to do element ref HTML input element. That sounds promising. Input model refs clone. View main. What does your init look like? Refs default. Is refs a seed thing? I'm usually not a fan of these kinds of glob imports, because when you just see this symbol, you don't necessarily know where it comes from. It's that one, lref. Virtual DOM element ref. DOM element reference. You want to use it instead of DOM selectors to get raw DOM elements. I suppose that's a way for us to sort of be guaranteed that the element actually exists. Where does it get assigned? View to-dos. If view to-do. lref. Yeah. elref. Is that your own thing? No. Right. That's actually pretty neat. So that's a way, like when you're constructing an element, while sort of constructing it, you're able to also save a reference to it. Do they have that in Elm? I don't think so. I'm not sure. That's pretty neat. And then what are you able to do with it? Get gives you, I keep going back to the terminal. Get an HTML input element. All right, and that's like a JavaScript DOM kind of thing. And then you're able to say like, what is it, text content or something, or value, because it's an input thing, value. Get the value field of this object. All right. Cool. Let's see if we can make an element. Yeah, let's ignore the broken. Let's just comment this out, because we don't technically care about the request right now. So what do we want? We want a thing like this in our model. Let's say that is a lref. No, input ref. HTML input element came from WebSys, which I don't think we're depending on. Where does that come from? All right, it comes magically, all right. Input LRef default. And then when we construct our HTML, so we don't care about this, we want to make an input. We wanted the LRef. Where element ref was that guy. Input ref. Do you have to type text inside of the input? Attributes. Save editing to do. Input event. Blur. So blur is when you move, is that when you move the mouse out of the input, or when you move the cursor out of the input, I believe. There's a key down event. Save, get the key. Is there like a changed input thing? Is that what this one is? Let's just see what that looks like to begin with. There's an input there. Does that become a placeholder? Nah, it just becomes stuff inside it. How do you make a placeholder? Is that this adders thing? Add value. At. All right. Very nice. Input event happened. That's because it receives, what's the string? Is that like the current value of the thing? Value. Can you just say log value directly? Yep, I guess so. Is that all that's necessary? I think so. Oh yeah, it works. Sweet. So we remove this guy. Very nice. I suppose that means we don't even need, can we get, I guess the reason to store the element is so that we can get the text in other places, but we could technically also just include the text in the event. Let's say this is username. No, we don't want it in the text. I imagine that we're going to have like a button, and when you push on that, then that fires an event, and then that event will, in the update function, it will grab both of the refs of the username and password fields, and then it'll get their values, and then it'll make an HTTP request to the server and hopefully get a token back. So that means we actually don't need to do anything when you type in the username thing, I think. Username input. I don't think something like this would be possible in Elm, because how are you able to call directly into like JavaScript APIs to get the text that's inside of an element? That's not a pure function. So how would Elm model that? I'm not entirely sure. If there's any Elm experts in the chat, do you know if you can do something like this? If like while creating a view, if you can store a reference to it and then like call arbitrary JavaScript APIs on that thing? I don't think so. I started making forms. This is password. Like that. Don't need this event anymore. Only tested a very long time ago. Yeah, myself. I played around with it like 2 years ago, I think, and only a bit, just to sort of understand the concepts. All right, so now we have the two fields. Now we need a button and div button submit. How did you make a click event thing on a button? Event click ink. What the hell does that do? Yeah, those are my dot files. Thanks for putting them in the chat. What is ink? Ink. Macro for cloning values to close. Alternative short record. What? Enclose. We had that in our original example. How the hell did that work? Quick start. Like this. Easy. Oops. Model click. Create user form submitted. We obviously also need to handle stuff like when they press enter versus clicking the buttons, stuff like that. We're just sort of figuring out how things work. Update EL reference. Like that. You can't put a button inside a button. Yeah, exactly. Did that work? Button clicked. Yes. So are we then able to say model dot input username dot get dot, what type is this? It's an HTML input element. HTML input element. Value. All right. Hey, where's X? Thanks for the raid. How's your stream? You're doing Rust as well, or something completely different? Thanks, man. Password input. That's some awesome Rust there. Thanks. Just trying to figure out how WebAssembly works. I think it's doing fine. At least things are working. Username. Value. I'm a Ruby's, but I support Rust. I used to be, I worked with Ruby for 5 years professionally, done it on the side a bit longer, so I came from Ruby as well. The logging is not a format macro. It doesn't interpolate these values. I think we've removed that. It still compiles. Yeah. So we can just remove, whoops. It's just like doing console log with multiple values, like that, I would assume. It totally seemed to be working. Is Rust as good as PHP? I have no opinions on PHP. They're empty. Foo bar. Hey, look at that. We're actually able to get the text. There we go. Very nice. So now we need to send those to the server. It's a good thing that we have, and error handling will get there. Does that return an option, by the way? No, it just returns a string. There's always a value. Can you, I'm curious now. What if you call .value on a div node? Is that possible? Document get element by tag name. Can you do this to get the first one? Value, type error. All right. I met an awesome Rust during my time at the Resource Center, and they were awesome. I'd imagine it was pretty awesome too. Yep. I like it a lot. It has a pretty steep learning curve in the beginning, but once you get over that initial hump, I think it's really great. And it's a lot of fun. And the communities are nice. which is cool. How did you call the registration endpoint to create a user? Post/users, username and password. How do you make a post request? What does fetch return? Fetch returns a into response. So it probably just constructs a GET request. JS future request into. We can probably just pass, we can make a request and pass it in directly. Sweet, we're gonna wanna do pretty much this thing. Form. Let's just steal this. /users method post JSON. Like that. Just need it to be inside a perform. Username. Let's just say that's username. Create user payload. Come on. Create user payload. Fun fact, you can create structs anywhere in Rust. Like you can define a struct inside a function. That's totally cool. I don't think you can access it outside the function though. We could move it out. Fetch, wait. I just want to reference. Why did their example compile? Curious. Fetch on the request, await, unwrap. Required. Request A. What the hell is wrong? Type is this? Ah, that's a result. All right. Yeah, because adding the JSON to the request can probably fail. Request JSON result fetch error. Yeah, that can be a SERDE error, right? Can you use question mark here? No, probably not. Error handling is a whole thing that we haven't looked into at all. Await, that gives us a response. Check status. What does the response look like? It looks like data with a token. So probably like data token, some string like that. Actually, let's just steal these. These are the response types that we're going to want to share between the two, the front end and the back end. Data token. All right, and let's just log it. Log token. This is so cool if it actually works. Foo bar. God damn it, so close. Expected value, SERDE error. What did it get? Ah, because we're making a post to ourselves. I'm gonna catch up on chat real soon. Sorry, guys. It worked. Hey, look at that. That's our token. Sweet. So now, what's the database that it uses? And whoops. There's our user, username foo, hash password something created just now. So it successfully works. We now have sort of very basic communication between the front end and the password, between the front end and the back end rather. Let's get rid of this. I don't think we need the fetch event anymore. All right, that is pretty cool. So now we have to like save the token in a like first in the model itself, and then in like a cookie or a local storage or something. Not quite sure how we're gonna do that. I think we're gonna tackle that next time though. Have you noticed that my laptop battery is slowly draining, very slowly? I think the fact that I'm both compiling 2 separate Rust projects and streaming at the same time is slowly draining my battery, very slowly. Can you get 2 chargers? If your computer has 4 USB-C ports, can you plug in 4 chargers and charge 4 times as quickly? Let's see. How would you compare Rust to C++? I've never done C++, so I'm not the right person to tell you. I did a bit of C back in university, and the main thing I learned from that was that I don't want to do C ever again. So there you go. 4 Apple chargers cost more than a MacBook. Yeah, they are very expensive. Oh, it's up to 12 now, which I guess is because we weren't compiling anything. All right. Let's do one more. Let's see if we can just save the token on the model and then actually send like a logged in event or something. Get the current user back and then save the current user. And when that works, I think then we'll wrap up for today. We don't need the count thing anymore. Let's nuke that. Say we want to save the token on the model. Auth token. Explicit lifetime required. Let's add like a no-op event that just doesn't do anything, so that we can just return just to get the compilers to go away. Ah, right. We cannot assign to the model from an async thing because the model is just a reference, which means we need to send an event, I suppose. Authenticated. Then we can say model.token is some token. That was auth token. Is the build part of Vim, was that a different pane like in Tmux? It's a different pane. It's part of the sort of starter template that we used for the WebAssembly template framework thing that we're using. All right. Can we then make another request to call /me to get the current user? Me get what did that look like? /me with an authentication header. How do you set headers on a request? Headers. Header. Set a specific header. Headers of this request. Replace any existing headers. Header authorization. Bara. Convenient. This is the one we want. what did header return? Did it return self? Yeah. Header. Header. Vera. I don't think we can do this. Model token. Because the model probably doesn't live long enough. I'm not quite sure. It returns a sum. It returns an option rather. Let's just unwrap it. Async. Whoa, shit. I got bimmed. Async move. It's not move async. That works. Can you do this as well? Model loss token. Unwrap. Nah. Perform CMD. So perform CMD requires that the future that you give it lives for a tick static. That means that the sort of this async block can't have any references. And currently it does. It references model, which is borrowed. So that means that this future that async generates will sort of automatically live as long as this reference lives. It can't live longer because then the model would be invalid. So we have to clone the auth token outside the closure and then move it into the closure. Like that. Request/me get the response back. What does the response look like? Good question. Logging in. It returns a username, which is a string, and then the ID, which is a UUID. Let's just ignore that for now. Make a username string. Add a to-do to ourselves. I wonder if the UUID library supports WASM. I guess we're going to find out. Turn that into a user. And let's say we return me loaded. And we have to implement clone for user. All right, everything compiles. Moment of truth, let's see if it works. Foo bar. Fuck, so close. Internal server error. Post 500/users. Curious why we don't see anything in the logs about it. 500. I'm not sure that the ban command is there. I should probably add it to Nightbot. How big is the WASM compiled binary? How's the startup time? No idea. PKG, does it go in there? WASM 2.6 megs? That's pretty big. Package.js. I honestly have no clue. I guess it's this one. But I don't think we're doing like release builds anyway. So I'm not sure. I wonder what's going on though. User. It sucks that we're not seeing anything. Whoa, this is not the wrong one. It's this one. Username. Ah, no, we're calling me. Authentication. Let's just make sure that we're actually getting in there. Wait, are we posting to /users? Yeah, that's to log in. That makes sense. What if we change this one to not do anything? Ah, it's probably because the username and password are already taken. User. Yeah, we don't handle it if the username and password are already taken. Let's just delete everything from user, delete star from users. Can you not do that? Delete from users. Auth tokens. Let's try again. Let's just bring this back. We should probably do some logging here just to make sure that we actually see it working. Can we log the whole model? No. 400 bat requests, client error. Get me. Can we see the response? Missing value for authentication header. Can we see the request as well? /me authentication bearer. It is setting the token correctly, it seems. We're calling that authentication, but it's authorization. Fuck. I have a little search and replace script. So this means inside, like infinitely deep into folders, any file that ends in rs, replace authentication with authorization, like that. Let's just run the test to make sure that everything still works. Yeah, classic mistake. Things are still working. We probably have to delete again. All right. There we go. That's our user. Let's just make sure that the ID is right. I'm not sure why it wouldn't be. Select ID from user. Users. 8E4. Yep, that's this one. Sweet. We've successfully. Oh, and you locked the entire model. Nice. Things are actually working. That's really cool. So now we just need to figure out how to actually save the auth token in a header. And we obviously need to clean this up a whole bunch, especially around like error handling and those kinds of things. Not quite sure how we're going to do that, but I'm sure we'll be able to figure it out. Cool. I think we're going to cut the stream here. We've been going for almost 4 hours now, which I think is a good length. Any questions regarding the setup that we have? Now is the time. I think we actually managed to get really far today. That was really nice. We cleaned up the backend quite a bit, broke up things into several modules. We had a fun times with the cores setup, which we still have to probably make an issue on the Tide repo. So that was fun. And we managed to basically go from nothing to some sort of authentication with the web app in WASM. We still have the to-do, the bug on the backend that we discovered where like it returns a 500 if you authenticate as a user who, like if you try to take the username that's already taken, then you return with a 500, which we don't want. Let's see, crashes, errors if trying to create user with username that is already taken. It should obviously not return a 500, but some sort of error response thing. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, so far my impressions of Seed are really nice. The fact that it integrates sort of natively with async await is really cool. And the fact that it's this easy to make external HTTP requests is pretty great. Just a 200 but with an error message, yeah, I mean, that could work. We have to exactly figure out how we do that. We don't really have the setup for it at the moment. I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, this setup of doing like HTML as macros, basically, I was a bit sort of iffy about it in the beginning, but I actually think it's gonna work just fine. It's really neat that you can like put as many things you want in here and put it in any order, and that sort of stuff is really great. And it seems to integrate through whatever this WebSys thing is. It seems to integrate quite well with the native JavaScript runtime, which is pretty cool. And it's neat that you can, like, I'm not sure if there's any Elm experts in the chat. I'm not sure if you can just like arbitrarily get the text value of some JavaScript node in Elm. But since Rust isn't pure, it's no problem. Hello, the language is Rust. We're doing WebAssembly on the front end. We're just wrapping up though. You're welcome to follow. We stream about every week. You can, all right. Do you have to like, whenever, I don't know. It's been like over 2 years since I did Elm. But last time I looked into it, you had to like, for every event, like on the input field, you had to like send an event back to the model with what the text was, so that you sort of stored what the text was in the model. I'm not sure if I just did it the wrong way or if that's the way that you're supposed to do it. I don't know. Another thing that I think we should definitely look into, probably in the next week, is to move these types into some sort of shared library that both the backend and the front end can use. That would be really cool. I wonder if you can move the URLs into that as well, so that you're sort of guaranteed that the URLs that the front end calls are actually implemented by the backend, because it's like all one library. That would be pretty interesting. Yeah. So anyway, I think that'll be this week's stream. If you enjoyed it, you're very welcome to follow. I stream once a week, usually on Sundays. Now my work's office is opening back up again from next week, so from tomorrow. So I have to get up early tomorrow morning. So it might be half an hour earlier next week. But you can always catch the past streams on here on Twitch for like 2 weeks, I believe. And I always upload previous streams to YouTube as well. There's a link down below. But I think we should do the raid thing. What do you think? Is there anybody online doing Rust that we should raid? Let's see. There is one guy I see. Museum, random projects in Rust. I think we raided this guy last time as well. Let's see. There's a guy doing Phoenix, but it looks like it's in Spanish. More Swift and GraphQL live coding. Should we do iOS? Doesn't seem like there's anyone else streaming Rust. Let's raid this guy. I would like to raid Rust people. So you're welcome for joining if you offer some more Rust. That should be... What are you doing, Twitch? Start raid. Yeah, so be nice. Take care, and I'll see you next week. You have to wait 5 seconds to start the raid. Thanks, guys. See ya.